Guess what? I think I might have pressed the right button. Right. Everyone good?
Normally it comes up and says we're being recorded and it hasn't done that.
Do you want to record the Zoom as well?
No, it's record. Confidence, guy. Confidence. It's recorded. Can't believe this. We've actually made it to the third one. Absolutely delighted to have our... I'm not going to call you an old friend because you're not old, because we've just discussed that, but good friend, Guy Griffiths, who is obviously industry health and wellbeing legend, podcast aficionado, so no pressure for me, and really good friend of mine who we have really good conversations all the time. And then our second guest, Rhys Thomas. Now, I've never crossed paths with Rhys before in my professional career in rugby. Rhys's story, which I read, literally blew me away. I definitely should know who you are, and I think everyone else should know you are, and everyone else should know who your story is. So I'm absolutely delighted to have the pair of you on. And Rhys, I just think what you've done and where you've been, and we're going to hear about all this in a minute, is so inspirational to just life in general, well-being, mental resilience, etc., etc., etc. You literally epitomise everything that we talk about all the time. So I'm going to be quiet, and I think for everybody listening, if you could introduce yourself, and then we'll pass over to Rhys, and then after that we'll get into a bit of a conversation about well-being.
Guy Griffiths, GG Fit is my company, which I formed in 2008 to help people get fitter and healthier, not by working with people, but by working with clubs, so gyms and health clubs, leisure centres, some budget chains, and we help them to get their members to stick around longer by various different means, everything from a nice hello to a good program to a text message that gives them some encouragement or motivation. So I'm all about getting people fitter and healthier by working with clubs. Just the kind of things that I do. I run a network called The Collective. I co-founded that with a good friend of ours, Alina Cooper, the idea of which is to help the fitness industry to share, collaborate and grow. And off the back of that, we brought out a number of podcasts now. The main one that I host is called Your Dream Gym, which is fun chats with people about their exercise, their health, their workouts that they love, and if they had unlimited resource, what would their dream gym look like? So look back in the archives for one with Glen on a mountain somewhere.
Yeah, I definitely blew the budget, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Guy. And I know a lot of people that listen to us already know who you are, but hopefully that's given everybody a bit of a snapshot. But for those people that don't know who Rhys is, strap in. Over to you, Rhys.
Thanks, guys. My name's Rhys Thomas. I was a former Welsh international rugby player. I had a heart attack at 29, the end of my career. That led me on a bit of a journey. I had a life-saving operation in 2014 that implanted a machine into my heart called the left ventricular assist device, which basically is an external battery-operated pump that keeps my heart going so that I can be transplantable. And for the last, what has it been now? Almost 9 years I've lived with this machine. And unfortunately, because of my transition from the game, I struggled with loss of identity, loss of purpose, and a loss of health and a lot of fears. And basically my life went down the drain. I became an alcoholic 2016 to 2019. Lost a great deal. Ended up in rehab beginning of 2020. And on the back end of that experience, I then turned my life around. I've been sober now 3.5 years, in which time I've become a speaker, inspirational speaker. I also helped to co-found a mental health and wellbeing charity. And we work in every sector from education to corporates. And I'm still on the heart transplant waiting list. And it's been quite the journey.
I told you everyone would have to strap in. I mean, just an unbelievable... I mean, well done you on everything, basically. Well done you on coming through all that adversity, that change of career. I myself have got a career-ending story for athletics, but it pales to insignificance for that because I just hurt my foot. But effectively, all of that turmoil and stuff, and I know what that's like. When you feel like you're on a path and you're going to be somebody and go somewhere, and then how that all changes and how you deal with that, and obviously sometimes negatively, but to come out the bottom of that trough and turn your life around. And I think one thing you didn't mention is the name of your charity, which I think is absolutely brilliant, especially for a rugby player. What's it called?
Tidy Butt.
Brilliant. How did you come up with that?
The partner that he's my very first rugby captain, because I'm South African by birth.
I wasn't going to pick up on your Welsh accent, but don't worry.
I moved to Wales in 2000, so I've been here 22 years. And when I moved to Wales, Matthew Creel is his name, was my very first rugby captain at Newport Youth.
Yeah.
And we both went our separate ways for many years. And then once I came out of rehab, Matthew had started Tidy Butt, which is a Welsh slang term in the Gwent Valleys for I'm okay. But
wow, didn't know that.
So it's like if you were just to say like how are you doing today? Yeah, I'm Tidy Butt. So he's from Abertillery, which is in the Gwent Valleys.
Yeah.
And he struggled with his own mental health and well-being, through different low mood and depression, and he decided he needed community. He needed to speak to others about how he was feeling, because normal kind of therapy wasn't for him, and he didn't feel that his antidepressants were really helping his life. They were just he was in limbo. So then he decided to start a group on Facebook, and then lockdown happened, and I came out of rehab, and we got in touch after being separated for quite some time, obviously in our own journeys, and then that's when it was came to life, and it's become quite the animal.
Amazing. So Tidy Butt's got nothing to actually do with having a tidy butt, if that makes sense.
It's got nothing to do with bums at all.
No, and I thought it might be coming from a prop. But anyway, again, great story. And again, just personal resilience and well-being and stuff. It's so important, obviously, for individuals. And individuals make up teams. And obviously, with what we do at Wellonomics, it's all about teams. And I think there's a massive correlation, having been involved, like I said, from a performance point of view with professional football teams, professional rugby teams, and that transition of corporate culture and teams. Guy, I'm going to come to you first. In terms of, sort of mental and emotional health, I mean, you must see this when you go into gyms and things, or just working with other companies, that effect that it has on teams. I mean, how does your own mental health and well-being health affect working with your team, or,
Yeah, it's massively important. I mean, from my point of view, I often think of my team as the family, because my business is me effectively. But you're absolutely right, and working with clubs and becoming, when I'm working with a client, I'll always try and become a part of the team, talking about a we and what we're trying to achieve. And part of what I do is to bring people together, whether that's let's get a fitness challenge going. Not your typical fitness challenge where the first person to run a marathon is going to win the t-shirt, because you can probably tell who in the gym is going to win the t-shirt before you've even started. But it's about bringing the instructors together and getting them to work as a team for individual targets, but team targets. And you can see the buzz that they get from that, and an excuse to go and talk to people. And to do that and to hit their team target, it's very easy on sales, but it's a lot harder with retention to measure that. Yeah. So, little things like that, challenges as an example. A challenge as in a fitness challenge that everyone can join in and do. There's a great one running at the moment, Techni Gyms, Let's Move for a Better World. Even if you just pick up a couple of weights or go for a walk and log it on your app, you will contribute to your club's team score.
Yeah.
And everyone can join in, everyone can be a part of it.
Yeah, and it's that collectiveness, and I'm sure, Rhys, you had it in spades, but I know certainly when I came out of professional sports as a senior coach, I struggled with the being on my own. Does that make sense? So I mean, Saturdays I cancelled Sky Sports. I couldn't watch rugby or football, but just knowing that you're part of a team and that you affect everybody else's. I mean, that's the bit that I still miss today, if I'm being honest with you. I have it replaced with work, but obviously in a rugby team that is massively exacerbated, especially game days and things, because you rely on other people. Would you?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's hard to replace the banter,
Yeah,
the togetherness, the connection, the camaraderie, the working towards a common goal. The sense of achievement, the sense of loss, like all those things that you feel together, that is very hard to replicate until you end up in another team. But it does, especially the athlete transition is an incredibly challenging thing, and it doesn't just mean elite athletes.
No.
You hear about guys, and it doesn't matter if they're playing for Division 3 East in Wales or somewhere in England, like they're 18, between 18 and 24, and they have a career-ending injury, whatever that may be. Their lives are greatly changed because from a young age, even if you drop out of an academy and you thought your whole life was mapped up in front of you, and that doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah.
Eventually, those poor kids, there's a lot of expectation. They feel like failures. They feel isolated. They don't want to go back to the sports in which they played. So, like, athletes transition is a super unique and challenging aspect, regardless of what level. Because
exactly. And do you think that's to do with kind of culture and belonging? Because I think I think back to all the teams and some of the world-class coaches I've worked under, creating culture and that sense of belonging. Obviously, in a team, you're there for the season, unless something happens or whatever. But effectively, there's a difference. In a organisation, somebody can leave at any point, and normally it's because there's a disconnect in the culture. Whereas what I missed and what I felt so strongly about was the culture. And you go to different teams, you work under different coaches and whatever, you get different types of cultures. But essentially it's knowing what that culture is and knowing that you are part of that culture, and how does my team's culture affect my own health and well-being? Because you can work under some managers or coaches and not belong, if that makes sense. But do you think that creating the culture is probably the first part of belonging, Rhys?
Me, yeah. I mean, the environment, the culture that you set is, it's paramount, because if you're in a toxic environment, the ecosystem's not right for you as a human, as a team. Like, you're just not. It's going to be functioning on 50%, at the very least. And then what you're going to create is isolation. You're going to get people working, not at full capacity, because either they don't want to engage with their fellow colleagues, or even worse, if it's their manager or someone from higher up, because the culture, don't get me wrong, can only be applied from the top down.
Yeah.
In a workspace.
Yeah.
Although in a sporting context, it can be player led, but very often, like, the leadership, has to come from the top. And although we all want to be leaders, and that's how a good and healthy, toxic, non-toxic ecosystem would look, is that it's led by the employees after being given, the tools in which they can be leaders and not fear failure, really express themselves, but in a healthy way
and safe environment
with targets, but realistic ones.
Yeah, and I remember pre-season was always a good time, wasn't it? You'd set out your vision, mission, purpose. All that stuff at the beginning. There'd be some outlandish things and all sorts of stuff that would come out. But it was always a good laugh, and that's what you miss. Is that it's always like you go year to year, and I'm not sure, Guy, whether we do that enough in the fitness industry. Do we include everybody on the shop floor, or the PTs in gyms?
The quick answer is no, and that's one of the things that I've been trying to change. And it's about, a lot of it's about getting buy-in, whether it's to a piece of software, for example, that management have bought to give us more work. Well, actually, that's not the position. What we need to do is we need to sell the software to the PTs, to the instructors, say, look, this is going to make your lives easier and better, and allow you to do your jobs, even better. It's not there to track you, and that's quite hard to convince sometimes. But yeah, it's about buy-in, but also about understanding why we're trying to get to those KPIs or whatever they are. It's very hard for an instructor to see that long game of, oh, we've increased 12-month retention by 2%, which is going to bring in another 50 grand.
But that's culture, right? Isn't it? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. But it's what we're trying to get to, and knowing the small steps to get there. But celebrating those and setting those out, and I think there should be more start of season stuff.
Yeah.
Northern Hemisphere fitness industry, we should be talking pre-season November, December, because guess what?
Very good point.
Coming.
Yeah.
We all know what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it all goes crazy in January, doesn't it? I mean, I think disagreement is healthy. I mean, I've been in some training sessions, with rugby players when disagreement has been healthy, but maybe not conducive. But effectively, you're in a safe space in a team environment. A rugby team, you're contracted, you're there to play. And if you disagree with something, you are always in a safe space for you to voice your opinion. And I think that is where, outside of rugby, it might be viewed as a bit of I don't think we should do that. Now, no one's advocating that we start grabbing hold of each other or anything in the fitness industry, but effectively having those disagreements or knowing that you're in a safe space to be able to speak up, to say, look, I don't agree with this. I think we're going the wrong way on that. I don't think we should throw it left. We should throw it right. I don't think we should mismatch on that player because that's not looking good. And I think we need to translate maybe some of that understanding into the corporate world, because I think most importantly, when you're in rugby, it's the players it's your field captains, your pack five, and all those people that can feed back what they think about things. And I'm not sure that we have that, what should we say, that transition of communication, or that transcendence from down to top and top to down. And and I think that's where we miss out. I think we do it fantastically well in rugby, but I'm not sure that translates into the work. How would we do that, Rhys, do you think?
I think a lot of it comes down to ego, right? You got the boss, and then you got his employees, and then the manager, etc. But ultimately, it's about how open-minded are they going to be to opinions coming in from the employees.
Is that trust?
I think it is trust. It's respecting perspective, right? Everyone's value. Everyone's got a voice. Yeah. I think, and when people feel like they do have a voice, they're more inclined, especially if they're not being judged on it, or it's going to go against them if they say, maybe I don't agree with that. It's not like they're going to leave, but at least they can have their 2 pence worth on the situation. And obviously openness to that level is only going to be beneficial for the environment.
Totally. And do you think that would, that influences people's mindset, surely, Guy, does it not? Culture and...
Absolutely. And it's, the trust and the team, a big part of it's communication, but it's also mucking in and joining in. And whilst I've only played 2 games of rugby in my entire life, I am a minis coach with my son in the under-10s, and I'm probably the least qualified coach, know the least about rugby, but I regularly get told by the parents, if I'm going to blow my own trumpet, about, they love being in your team or whatever, because I am doing the press. The reason I'm doing it is partly health and fitness, believe it or not, but I'm doing the press-ups with them, I'm running around the pitch with them, and I'm not that bothered about the technical. I mean, you shouldn't be at 10 years old, really.
No.
I just want the kids to have fun and to come back next week. And if they're doing that and running around in the rain and the cold, or going on tour and having a great time in a team, I don't care if they're playing netball, and we play rugby netball, but it's about mucking in with them and just getting on with them. And I think that's the same in the corporate culture, not necessarily ground level, but trust and mindset of everyone coming together for the common goal.
Yeah, and I think it's setting we're very good in rugby, aren't we, Rhys, at setting standards. This is what we expect of you. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is the standard that we expect. I mean, I remember. It was a bit of a shock when it happened, but luckily I got through it. But I remember I stood next door. I was working with Neil Back, and Backy turned around and went, right. And we'd had a bit of a rubbish session, and he said, right, everybody down, 5-minute plank. Everybody knows what a plank is. So 5 minute plank, and I've literally in my head. So I'm there as head of athletic performance. So we've all dropped down, and after about 2 minutes, I'm starting to shake and all this. And I'm thinking, if I don't pull out a 5 minute plank, I'm done for. I'll lose the respect of him, etc., etc., etc. And don't get me wrong, players were dropping all over the place. It was hilarious, and it ended up becoming a fun thing. But I was absolutely determined that because that was my role, and the boss had asked for it, I had to get through it. I mean, it killed me, absolutely killed me. But I think setting standards and then measuring people and then say, and then also supporting and being empathetic with people when they can't quite make those standards. But if people know what they're attaining to, then you've got to support people to get to that point, haven't you? I mean, if you lose 3 games on the bounce in rugby, you don't spend the next training session shouting about what went wrong, do you? You talk about what we can do for the next one. And I think sometimes what we're not good in corporate world is reflecting and then positively stepping forwards and supporting people. What we end up doing is looking at KPIs. And remember, we don't measure KPIs, we measure KWIs, because key wellbeing indicators should be in the boardroom alongside KPIs, because at the end of the day, culture, people drive your business. And if you look after that, and if you think about that, Rhys, that's the whole tactical, technical, physiological and psychological model of performance sports. And effectively, tactical and technical is, what we do at work all day, every day. But the psychological and the physiological, which is what drives performances in sports people, is what we're not quite measuring or getting hold of. Because you do have a responsibility as an employer, would you say?
Yeah, of course. And ultimately, you can't just expect work all the time, and they're just going to keep grinding it out forever. That's the difference between sport and I think the corporate world is that, because that team, that collective that's in the office 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, come the weekend, very few of those people are interacting together. Maybe a handful, right? The rugby team, it's more than likely, if they're not out, maybe their families within a few of those players are still together because they have a common ground. Like maybe they are well known in that particular area. So they tend to be a little bit more insular, a little bit more isolated. Whereas in a workspace, if you're just expecting, there's no work-life balance, the environment is just work all the time. There's nothing coming back the other way. There's no outs. So if you want of a better word, how are you, how are you picking up the employees? What's the what's the reward? Is there an incentive? You could obviously introduce well-being type incentives, who's done the most steps this week? I don't know. Who's been to gym X, Y, Z many times? They get a massage. There's so many things we can introduce in the workplace that could add a well-being spin to it, and it would take nothing. Just a few little goals here and there. A little bit of healthy competition within the workforce to introduce.
That's the key, isn't it? It's the bringing stuff together, because you can't create culture in isolation. And yes, look, we all know that physical well-being does drive better mental well-being. I think we could all agree on that straight away. But effectively, doing things in collaborative ways, in community ways, because most of the culture stuff that is achieved on in a rugby team or a high performance team is not done in training or on the pitch. That's work, right? Yeah. The rest of it is, let's be honest, going out for dinner with the other families, or having a barbecue, or going paintballing in the nude or something, or some stupid things that I've been involved with before. Or
in rugby terms, on the piss together.
Well, I was going to say that, but yeah, I mean, essentially that's what it is. That's where the stories get created. We've all been on the bus in the luggage rack doing skydives and then trying to drop at the bottom. All of those stupid things that you remember that create stories, and stories is what creates the culture. It creates, understanding of each other. And I think, from where we are in the fitness industry, I think we've got some really good programs, wouldn't you say, Guy, that brings people together. And I think if we could take those sorts of things and the cultural learnings that we get from professional sports and push those things together into an organisation, I think we'd be some way on the way to creating culture, better culture.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm sure you've probably got Peter Webb lined up at some point on this.
He's on the radar, yes.
one of his points was that we've seen a lot of photos of teams, possibly pre-season in December. Sorry, I mean business teams going out paintballing or doing the high ropes or whatever else. And actually, what you're getting there a lot of the time is the particularly extrovert people having a great time. There's other people who aren't so much. And whilst those events are great and do create stories, which is important, it's also important to have these discussions either in the workplace or at some other kind of offsite, and to have the conversations and the communication. And if that comes down to KWIs, then brilliant. We've got to focus on them. But it's not just let's all go out and get drunk. But we did that on Friday, Glen. So we're both down with that. But it's not for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And having the discussion in the boardroom and also throughout the company as well about possibly steps and well-being, but also about working from home, or about green spaces, or about drinking more water, or about sleep, or about resilience, or about alcohol, or whatever else, and saying this is a safe space to have those discussions, and we want to know where everyone's at, because sharing all this kind of stuff is what's really important. And for me, a lot of what helps build my resilience is not shouting about it every day on LinkedIn, but maybe once a week to just go, I did this, I overcame it like that, or I haven't overcome it. Just wanted to let you know, because I know that the people that are looking out for me will, the phone will go off.
And I can see that transition's happening, certainly on LinkedIn. I mean, hold my hands up, I've kind of done a bit of it myself. You probably saw a little thing about me the other week, dislocating my shoulder snowboarding. Little bit of luck, I'd say, more than skill, but a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of luck, a little bit of chance, and next thing you know, it's not ruining a holiday. But effectively, things didn't really go that well to start with, and I think there's definitely a change now where people are actually being more honest on social media, rather than that kind of visual perception that everyone's got a perfect life and, oh God, I need to have that because I haven't got it. And comparatively speaking, we've all got the same problems. Or should we say we've all got problems? Not maybe the same problems, but we've all got problems. And I think it's how we deal with that and how we communicate. Do you think, both of you, that it's possible to create culture, though, if you're working from home, or hybrid working, as it's now called? Or do you think that creates problems, and how would you fix it?
Do you want to go, Guy?
Yeah, that's a biggie, I know.
Well, I've done it for almost 15 years. I think it's possible. I think it is harder. And I know a lot of corporations, or corporates, a lot of my friends who still work in the city, are being required, i.e. your bonus is linked to how many days you're in the office, which I think is harsh. Yeah. But there's still a culture. I think the big thing with working from home, personally speaking, and from a business point of view, is when people go into the office, if they are going in once or twice a week, they shouldn't be required or feel obliged to have meetings from 9 till 5, and that's on a good day. It's probably meetings from 8 till 7 or 8 till 8. If they're in the office, they should be, because you're in the office today, I expect you to be down at the gym for 2 hours, or we're going on a walking meeting, because we're all here together and we're not on Zoom, but we are also going to take this opportunity to get out and to do maybe the high ropes, or maybe go to the pub. It's
quite interesting concept,
it's
really.
It's getting that blend.
It's almost like saying, it's a bit like, use the rugby analogy, because that's what we're talking about a little bit, but effectively when you go to the office, that's where you create the culture, and when you go home, that's where you get your work done, if you're hybrid working, if that makes sense.
Yes, a little bit. Yeah, but it's recognised. I think it's for bosses or execs to recognise that, and the good ones clearly do know that. You're getting the work done at home. It doesn't matter whether you're doing a 9 to 5, as long as you're getting the work done.
Well, it doesn't matter where you do the work, does it? As long as it gets done.
Well, there's quite a lot of companies now. I can't remember, but a couple of the Nordic countries are pretty much on a 4-day week, because it's more effective, and they're all happier up there, aren't they?
Yeah. Supposedly.
Yeah. Are you working from home, Rhys? Or what's your...
Yeah. So this take on it for me is that I think that it should be completely employee-led.
Yeah.
I hear a lot. I've done a few bits with some corporates lately, and they're enforcing, it's like either you're remote working or you're doing 1 day in the office, and that's non-optional. That's the law. And for me, I find that super harsh because.
Do they dictate which day, Rhys?
Oh no, I don't know. I couldn't say that.
Yeah,
I didn't go into the specifics.
Yeah,
but for me, I think it's got to be up to the employee, surely, in my opinion, because obviously I'm not the one paying the bills at the end of the day. But some people don't have good environments at home. They don't want to be at home surrounded by 2, 3, 4 kids. A mental dog that barks all day. I don't know. There's a number of things at home. Yeah. And also, do you really want to be bringing work home? Like, home, if home is your, where you chill, it's apart from work. All of a sudden, you're in home, you got your work stuff. The minute your eyes open, it's work. Before you go to bed at night, you're on the computer, you're thinking about the morning. That place of peace, and it all of a sudden becomes intertwined.
It's definitely become blurred, hasn't it?
But it's empowering people, or giving them the education or the tools or the tips or whatever to go. I mean, I've done it a few times to have a morning commute, which is literally, I mean, it's easy if you're taking the kids to school or something like that, but when you're not, it's having that commute and having breaks. But people need to be educated and encouraged to do that, and also have the tools within Zoom or whatever you're setting up your meetings on to go. Yeah, I'm not going from Zoom to Zoom, because there's nothing worse than having 3 or 4 back-to-back meetings online without a commute in between. And a commute, I was liken it to having 5 meetings in London, but you'd be travelling, walking, tube, whatever, taxi between each one, but you're processing that last meeting or in your car going to the next one,
which is intense. Which if you turn around that leads to burnout. Surely, I mean, you couldn't have 5 high intensity training sessions in back to back, could you, over 5 days? Because you blow up. We know that from the fitness world. We know that from the rugby world. So in terms of the intensity, that's it's supported by the fact that we are so much more accessible these days. And literally a click of a button, and you feel guilty if it rings. You do. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to pick up. It doesn't matter who's calling. It could be a PPE thing. I'll still pick up just in case. But it's just it's that automatic brain function of, my phone's ringing, pick it up, see who it is. Sometimes don't even look and see who's ringing. So I think intensity wise, if you think about what we know in the fitness industry and what we know from rugby, is you cannot operate at that intensity. I mean, I remember coming into training one day and we'd had a bit of a shocking run, lost a few games on the bounce, and off we went go-karting. It's got nothing to do with what we were supposed to be doing that day or anything like that, but everybody needed a break. And I think that's the point, is that although work is work, like you say, Rhys, and home is home, you've still got to create some, and I hate the term family for work, because family is family, work is work. So you've got to, and we've got to be really careful that we don't start to blur those lines. But effectively, work doesn't need to be all work. Would you agree?
I agree. There needs to be. I think in today's society, it's super stressful, right? There's a lot going on. It's fast paced. There's a lot of fear mongering and all sorts of stuff going on. Social media stresses. You got there's a lot going on. On top of that, finding that work-life balance is hard, especially with kids, with the family, and when you're working from home, there can be a lot going on.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Great little segue. It's like we planned that, Rhys, but effectively, with what we do with the Wellonomics, platform, is we measure KWIs for your company, and based on that one that you just said about balance, which is probably my most shocking stat that is being reported back by a platform at the moment, but we're reporting 33% of people do not feel that they have work-life balance. So what is work-life balance there? I mean, that's a whole podcast on its own.
It's like you keep alluding to the physical and the mental, right? They are connected.
Massive.
So like it's like we're using rugby analogies today.
Yeah, of course.
The rugby analogy is we train every day, high intensity. We play rugby every weekend, taking the knocks. Matter of weeks, bang, your physical body is going to break down in some capacity, in some injury, in some way. So in the severity, who knows how hard you've been going.
And the difference between rugby and work.
And if you're in work, and most of the time it's mental application, and put on top of that family pressures, financial pressures with gas, electric, fuel, cost of living, all this kind of stuff going on. That's just extra. And if you're not getting that balance, and then on chuck in top of that, you got grief, you got anger, you got there's a whole bunch of stuff that could be going on in that person's life. Yeah. And it's a difference between being in that, slipping into crisis, or being in that, just above it.
Well, absolutely.
It doesn't. The 33% is shocking, but actually it doesn't surprise me because we know that not enough people are being physically active, and I don't mean smashing out a Les Mills workout with a MyZone belt on.
Well, I've got that stat for you as well if you want to know that one.
But just being going for what, being regularly active, or even just moving, because that is a big part of that balance. And that's where, I mean, from my point of view, I build it in with the family stuff, and the family stuff is absolutely non-negotiable for me, to the point where I'll let clients down. They probably don't. Well, I know they don't notice because I probably slightly under-promised and over-delivered.
Yeah.
The point is, I'm like, I've not got to that, but I've got to go to Taekwondo because I'm taking my son, or I'm dropping my daughter at cross country, and I'm marshalling, and you just build it in.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not for everyone.
Well,
we're a bit unusual.
It's boundaries, right? Boundaries is everything. Work, life.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, talking about, you've hit on some of our key well-being indicators that we measure, and interestingly, 36% of people in February didn't feel like they had enough energy.
Wow. Okay. Want to go for a walk?
Just energy in general, just for every day, just energy. Just like, do I feel good for today? Which probably won't surprise you if I say that 42% people enjoy sufficient sleep. So flip that on its head, that's 68 the other way, or whatever it is, 58, can't do my maths, but 58 the other way. But everyone knows I can't do maths. And then we've got 63% of employees are experiencing negative effects on stress. So that's 63% stressed. And then we've got 63% of employees feel that they exercise sufficiently. Now, if that was a rugby team, do you think they'd be winning championships?
I mean, everyone's different, right? Everyone's got different stuff going on at different times. Unique, some a lot worse than others. Yeah. And, chuck on what we've been through our lives and through the processes we're going through in that moment. Life can be a challenge, undoubtedly, right? Yeah. But I think it goes back to, compassionate leadership, that everyone has a voice in the office. There is ways that you can voice if you are feeling overly stressed. There's things in place, but also that they understand, they have the education around the importance of finding that work-life balance, having boundaries, but also putting in time for their wellness, physical and mental. And what are they actually putting into action? Because it's all talk is cheap, but if you're not at least going for a walk, because just even if it's 10 minutes, just leave your phone in the house, just get out, just go see some greenery, even if it's with the dog. That's going to make impact. Just that 10 minutes, I promise you.
Yeah, definitely. And Guy, you did your walking meeting this morning, didn't you?
Yeah. I didn't. Well, I was going to say I forced myself out, but I didn't. But actually, I was getting my colleague out of her office as well. Yeah. And there's a. We do it because we know we do every 2 weeks. Get out, a little bit of co-coaching. But we always do it outdoors. I know where she's walking around the woods in Highgate because I used to live there. She doesn't know Wokingham so well, but getting out in the fresh air. I was listening to a podcast webinar last week from some You know them, Glen, but I can't remember who it is. But it was the point was, yeah, throw the curtains wide or whatever else the other guy says, but actually throw the windows open as well and get your head out into the light as early as possible in the morning. Get those endorphins kicking in. If you're having trouble sleeping, one of the best things you can do, never mind screens at night and everything else, as soon as you wake up, get outdoors, or at some point in the morning, get outdoors.
Yeah.
Have a walk. Walk your dog every day, even if you haven't got a dog.
Yeah, just take some fresh air. Like you say, the
Follow
guy.
a dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, if you don't have a dog with you, you don't have to pick up after it. But dogs are still twice as popular as gyms in the UK. Some stats back at you, it's around 30-40% of households own a dog,
Really?
while only 15% of people have a gym membership. And a dog absolutely is for life. It's not like, oh, am I on a 12-month contract or can I leave any? No, you've got a dog, that's for life, and you've got to pick up after it.
Yeah.
Sure, it cuddles you and strokes you, and you've got to feed it, but a hell of a bigger commitment. But they are out walking every day, rain, shine, snow, whatever. Brilliant mental health intervention.
Yes.
Here's a dog.
Yeah. Don't disagree with that whatsoever. So, I mean, effectively, we come from the physical space. Like I said, Wellonomics, we believe physical drives better, mental drives better work well-being. The Guardian ran a trial recently. I think it was 100,000 participants or something. But 150 minutes of exercise is something that we band around in the physical activity sector a lot. Has been shown now to reduce depression and anxiety. That doesn't really make much of a sort of big thing to us because we know all of that stuff, but equally exercise has been found to be 1.5 times more effective than CBT for mental health conditions. So that evidence is there. So how do we create that culture, that work organization that puts physical and mental well-being in the same arena? Because we've kind of gone down this route of mental health first aiders, let's get loads of those, but I do feel that there's a disconnect then from the physical health. So how do we push that together? What would be your top well-being tips, I guess, to try and create that positive culture, Rhys? And then Guy.
I think it's offering people options, because I think sometimes we can be very tunnel visioned. So like we're looking for answers, but we just kind of looking in the same place. So like there's, how do we get in better condition? Do we run? Do we go to the gym? Like, do we play a sport? But like, if we're no good at all those three things, or we have injuries, or something is along those lines, or even worse, maybe we are having something wrong with our, our confidence. We've got a bit of a mental, a block around that. Our mental health maybe isn't so great, so that we're worrying about our image, or something like that, and that's the reason we don't want to go to gym. Maybe it's about finding a different way, a different type of exercise, like yoga, tai chi, breath work, cold water immersions.
Yeah,
because there's loads of clubs popping up.
Wim Hof.
Are we doing saunas? Like all the research coming out of the cold water, hot and sauna at the minute, are frightening. Like 40% reduced mortality on all diseases. From doing like 20 minutes of heat a week. The amount of dopamine you're getting from just from cold water alone, it's like more than doing cocaine, and it lasts for 3 hours. So like there are ways and means of finding a better balance in your well-being, other than playing a sport, beasting yourself to death running, or going to a gym. Like there is other ways, but like people maybe just aren't aware of them.
I totally agree.
Sorry, I'm still thinking of mine, but can I ask Rhys what?
Yeah, go for it.
Obviously, sport and activity was already there, but how much of that played a part in your rehab in you said 2020?
That was the thing, right? When I finished rugby, my alcoholism lasted 3 years until boom, it ended like overnight, and then I was overweight massively. I was 21 stone actually when I eventually stopped drinking, and then when I started to figure out that actually all my issues, like alcohol, all these things weren't my problem, that I was the problem, and that alcohol was making my problem a lot worse, I started to then give myself the love, started to do a lot of work on myself with group and one-to-one therapies, but I was very open-minded to the therapies: equine therapy, NLP, EMDR.
What's EMDR? Sorry, just so that
It's eye movement something.
something. Explain
eye
it.
movement,
Yeah.
eye movement desensitization, something like that.
Yeah. And what does it do?
It's a different type of therapy whereby they use a finger to track, and you track it with your eyes,
Right.
and it's very effective for getting trauma.
Wow.
For targeting trauma.
Okay.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's an incredible therapy that I wasn't aware of until I used it, and
Yep.
my God, it pulled out so much. It's like not really a typical therapy type session.
Yeah, yeah.
When you talk, it's kind of, it brings up feelings. It's like stored in your body. Very, very interesting.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then, but then I found more somatic practices that were very beneficial for me. I used breath work, to which now I'm training to become a facilitator, because it brought out so much of my own, integrating my own issues, my traumas.
Yeah.
But also in that process found, embodied movement, cold water, like so many different ways. And I mean, if we genuinely, also keeping an open mind and the way society is moving, there are many ways to balance our well-being and our physical health. And also there's the psychedelic wave is real, there's things going on out there.
Yeah.
But it's definitely to get your house in order before you go down that path.
Yeah. But choice is what you said initially, but it's almost the same answer. Choices or options was what helped, right?
Yeah, but ultimately, when I started to resolve my issues by delving, keeping a very open mind, but just wanting to do a lot of healing, then that allowed me, by giving myself that self-love that I needed, that self-esteem, then I started to respect myself, look after what was going in my body, and then just walking 10, 20 minutes a day, because my heart's, I can't beast myself. My heart's literally run by a pump. If I could show you now, I've got a wire coming out my stomach, run by batteries. Honestly, so I can't do any excessive exercise. But just a 10-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute walk every day, I lost 5.5 stone just through, diet and
keeping
just
it simple.
Small walks.
Yeah.
So it's possible. Anything is possible.
Yeah. Cool.
So
that helps. Sorry, I'll turn back from questioner to guest. But it helps with my answer, which, in terms of well-being tips, I think it's all about choices and options, and about giving people those, and saying that, we've got 15% of people in the UK at least coming into the gym and having gym memberships. Therefore, it's a massive minority. What can we do for everyone else? There's things like drink water regularly, have a big bottle, it's easy, which I regularly talk to Glen and Alexa about. But for me, it's move. It's just move every day.
Yeah.
And if you can build that in through being very bad at golf but enjoying going and playing it, or being a minis rugby coach, because actually I was just, hold on, I'm in health and fitness. Why am I trying to keep warm drinking this coffee on a Sunday morning? I might as well put shorts on and run around with them, or going for a walk, whether it's on a meeting or whether it's just but just building it into your life, getting it in there every morning if you can, but factoring in movement, not exercise, not activity, not beasting. And I think that's a great example, Rhys, because you almost, or it sounds like you want to still, but you can't. But actually, that's most people, and a lot of people are afraid. Or if I go, I don't want to exercise because next thing I'll be running a marathon, then I'll have a heart attack and I'll die.
Yeah.
No, we're not. Just get out for 10 minutes. You don't have to turn your Strava on. You just have to get a bit of fresh air. If there's some trees or water, that'll give you a massive benefit.
Consistency.
And you don't have to involve kettlebells and Mysore belts, even though we all love them. And also, and gratitude, and just being, sharing it, talking about it, exactly what we're doing here now, and just sharing the ideas or sharing the bad stuff. I know you had an explicit advisory on your podcast there, Glen, sorry. But sharing what you're doing, good or bad, So not just the social media, Instagram filter. I don't really know what I'm talking about now. But sharing it in the pub or over a coffee is really important as well for me.
That's brilliant. And look, thank you for both. I mean, we could go on and on and on, and I'm already conscious that we're literally out of time. But what I'm hearing there is fantastic. Is consistency, keeping it simple, not getting too het up about what we're trying to achieve, but also maybe stepping outside of your comfort zone or exploring. And this might be a message back to the fitness industry, I think, Guy, is that what you just listed, Rhys, for helping with your well-being can be done very simply by yourself with no cost and actually has a massively positive effect. And this is the thing, most of the things that we talk about, and this is where I get frustrated as a scientist, I guess, is that most of these things that we talk about are evidence-based anyway. So cold water therapy, I'm actually putting one in my garden. It's a 7-foot stock tank that the cows and sheep and stuff used to, feed out of. It's a bit of a thing, but in the winter time I'll be able to heat it up. But I'm doing it for that purpose, for mental well-being. I don't know if you've ever done the 5-minute shower challenge for a week. Like literally every morning, have a cold shower for 5 minutes in the morning. The difference that you feel when you get out of that shower because of erythema and all the blood flow, capillarization, all that sort of is immense. It's horrible when you do it, which takes some mental resilience, by the way, to actually make yourself do it. But most people that know me from professional sports know how much of an advocate I was of, cryogenics and therapies and water and all that stuff and cold water therapies. So it's about looking outside of the traditional thing, because if you can't do something like Rhys can't do high intensity, that doesn't mean it's not attainable for good well-being. So I think the message I'm hearing from the pair of you is consistency and broaden your horizons. Look at everything that's possible. Choices, options, etc., etc., and create conversation where you can talk to each other.
I mean, community is more important than ever in the times we're going through. So, like, to find tribe, find family. We never had more information at our fingertips than we have right now in our lives. But we're looking at it in the wrong places. With social media, draining hours of our life. Never in history have we put so much time into doing nothing.
Correct. And, very poignant.
And use it for its purpose. Find out where there's a club, pottery, expressive arts, flute, drum, whatever it takes. Just go out, because find like-minded individuals, find a community, find tribe, find someone, because ultimately, until we are seen, heard, and held, we are going to feel lonely, isolated, and alone. Yeah. So it's important that we do what is necessary to find that. We're not supposed to be isolated animals. We're
unbelievable.
We get best off in herds.
Exactly. People need people, don't they? Look, I think so that we don't talk for the rest of the day, because we could quite easily, and I feel like we're just getting back into this. So let's regroup soon. Definitely need to have further conversations. It's been absolutely amazing to have the pair of you on this podcast for the 3rd episode, which will be out next week sometime. But I really appreciate all of your thoughts and thinking on these matters. It's a huge subject. We never expect to get it done in 45 minutes, and we've definitely gone over. But essentially, I think it's just important. Create conversation, create awareness. With awareness, you can get understanding, and with understanding, you can get action. And if you can create those 3 things, like you said earlier, Rhys, anything is possible. Thank you very much for joining us. If you want to check anybody out, all the links will be in the bios and everything. Once we've someone's post-produced this and cut me out of everything, hopefully. But essentially, really, really enjoyable conversation. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Yes, Glen. Thanks, Guy.
Thanks, you too. Cheers, Glen.
Cheers.